All right, students, so today we're going to do the groundwater lesson. And the engage of this lesson is reading the class a book called A River Ran Wild. And this is about a river in New Hampshire called the Nashaway, which was like our Rouge River, severely polluted. And it tells the story about a group of people, just like our friends of the Rouge, who took it upon themselves as a community to clean up the river. So what happened to the river is, at the time the Native Americans were here, which actually was just hundreds of years ago, the river was a clear river with a pebbled bottom, beautiful river. Well, then we got some factories moving in along the river. And so a lot of organic matter was put into the river. And then some textile factories came in and got a lot of cotton pieces into the river. And they would often dye the cotton as well. So they had a river that was now not very nice and clean. Plastics companies moved in. So we got some plastics put into the river. And then we got some real smelly pollution into the river, which I'm going to use some vinegar. And this smells awful. And then we got some really, really stinky factories just dumping whatever they wanted into the river. So that nice river with the pebbled bottom that was there at the time of the Native Americans got completely trashed. And we ended up with a river that is very highly polluted. So that's our engage of the lesson. We read the students a story, and as we're reading in the story, there's pages that say stop, add sticks, or add paper. This is a great lesson. If you need a demonstration lesson, a lot of students have done this lesson in their student teaching or when they're doing their, visiting the schools. You can borrow anything you want from me if you ever need to do a lesson as part of your education here. And you can borrow these materials and do this lesson with students. It's a very popular one. A lot of students have done it. So that was our engage. Now our explore is, how can we clean this water? How can we get this water? What materials would make the best filter? Because the fact of the matter is, a lot of people use wells. They get their water from wells. If you live in the city here, you probably get your water from the water treatment plants, from pipes. But Dr. Swift, who teaches here in physics and lives in Farmington Hills, she still has a well. She gets her water out of the ground. How does the ground clean water? That is our question for today. How do we make the best filter? What materials can we use? So you can see we have some very expensive equipment. How much is this? 10 cents. Okay. Science doesn't have to be expensive. Coffee filters, you can get like 1,000 for, $4. All right. So you can get cheap materials and do fun science things with your kids. What we're going to do is we're going to make 3 different filters. We're going to see which one works the best at cleaning the water. Some of the materials that we have include sand, which is found in the ground. Okay. We're going to use some clay, which is also found in the ground. And we have this called diatomaceous earth. It's also known as pool filter. What this is there's tiny little crustaceans called diatoms. They're so tiny, but they have a shell, and they crush them up and make pool filters out of them. So I'm going to put my goggles on simply because none of these things are really too dangerous or anything. So we're going to make different filters maybe one of the filters we want to just have sand. And we're going to see how effective is just sand in cleaning out the water. How effective is that? Let's do, and again, I brought this one to show you. You can even use, you know, if you only have these kind of little bottles, or if you don't want to give the students massive amounts of materials, you can even just use a little pop bottle, a little plastic bottle. This one, let's use some sand and some clay. And let's make a third one that has the pool filter, some clay, and you kind of have to be careful with these things because they can get into the air. You don't want your students breathing in, and some sand. Okay, let's do one that has all three components. Now, what you do with your students is you say, we want to answer the question, what makes the best filter? If you are teaching them about money and math, you can also do this lesson in a different way. And you can give them, like, say you have $5 to spend, and, you know, a little bit of sand costs $1, and a little bit of the pool filter material costs $1, and a little bit of clay costs $1. The filters cost $1. And you tell the students, now you can only spend $5 on your materials. So you can do this lesson. You can bring math into it if you want. You can let them randomly pick things. However you want to do it, it's a great lesson. The students will really enjoy it, and they're going to see how these different materials clean the water. Imagine Dr. Swift, living in Farmington Hills, has a well in her backyard. It's probably over 100 feet deep. So that water that she drinks has infiltrated through 100 feet of soil and sand and clay and just different things that are in the yard where she lives, and gotten down to the level of the groundwater, which is our lesson, that it's clean. She can drink it. As long as there's nothing polluting that groundwater. Let's say there was a factory next door who put things in the earth and that got into the groundwater. No, that wouldn't work. But she actually today has a well in Farmington Hills. Now up north, most people have wells. They get the water right out of the ground, and you're going to see how that works. So let me take some of this water, and I'm going to stick it into our one that has all three. I'm going to stick it into the one that has just sand. I should have poured that first one a little more carefully. And this one had clay. And so our engage was what makes the best filter. And unfortunately, I spilled some of that over. I'm gonna take and re-pour this right now because I got some over the line. What makes the best filter? So that is the explore for the students. Now the explain, I'm going to have a little video with some of the PowerPoint slides from Groundwater, and so we'll get into that after. You can see that none of these things are really being successful getting that pink color out, that pink dye. But there's a little difference in clarity. This one is the water is much more clear, but that dye is not coming out very well. Well, your students in their engage can make any variation that they want, and you can use different colors. And speaking of colors, these liquid watercolors that you can get from Discount School Supply, you get 8 ounces for $3. or you can buy 1 ounce of food coloring for $3.29. So when you get your own classroom, get a set of these liquid watercolors. They are excellent. You have so many uses of dye in your classroom, so get a set of this.